Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
In the summer of 2017, a 31-year-old man named Lucas rented a small lakeside cabin in northern Wisconsin. He was an amateur photographer looking for isolation, quiet, and the eerie beauty of abandoned places to inspire a personal project. The cabin was cheap, shockingly cheap, and its Craigslist listing simply said, "No pets, no visitors, stay inside at night." Lucas didn't care. He arrived with 2 cameras, a drone, and 3 weeks of food. The property sat about 2 miles from the nearest road, nestled deep in the woods, and the lake it bordered was black, still, and ringed by dead trees with no birds or animals in sight. The silence was immediate and total. The first few days were uneventful. Lucas took pictures, explored the shoreline, and even tried to hike around the lake. But about halfway through the 3rd night, something changed. It was 2:13 a.m. when he was woken by a tapping sound, faint and irregular, like fingers on a window pane. He sat up, groggy and disoriented, and noticed his camera, which he'd left on the windowsill facing the woods, had been knocked to the floor. Thinking it might have been wind or an animal, he got up, checked the window, and froze. Outside the glass, about 30 feet away, stood a figure, female, pale, and motionless. Her head was tilted just slightly, like a curious child's, and her eyes were pitch black. Not just dark, black, like voids, like holes punched into her face. She was wearing what looked like a damp, tattered nightgown that clung to her like it had been underwater. Lucas stared for what felt like minutes. She didn't move, didn't blink. Then, slowly, she turned and vanished into the trees. The next morning, Lucas found small, wet footprints on the porch. They were bare feet, but distorted. Each toe looked too long, and the arch was almost absent. He wanted to leave, but convinced himself it had to be some prank, maybe some local messing with him. Still, he set up cameras all around the property. That night, he stayed awake, waiting. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the lights in the cabin flickered, then went out. His generator was full and functioning, but nothing electrical worked. Outside, through the kitchen window, he saw her again, closer this time, just at the tree line, swaying, as if dancing to no music. She moved without sound, without breath. Then he heard something behind him, a wet, dragging sound across the floor. He spun around. Nothing was there. But the cabin smelled suddenly like lake water, thick, rotting lake water. Lucas locked the door, grabbed his flashlight, and tried to run to his truck. But the woods had changed. The trail he'd taken every day was gone, swallowed by fog and silence. Every tree looked unfamiliar. He turned back, but the cabin was gone. He spent the entire night lost, running in circles, until dawn finally came and the fog lifted. He found the cabin again, but something was different. All the windows had been shattered from the inside. His gear was soaked, like it had been underwater. His drone's memory card was corrupted, but the footage from his outdoor cameras had survived. Only it didn't make any sense. The footage showed the cabin, quiet and still, until 2:13 a.m. Then, without explanation, the front door slammed open on its own. Seconds later, the pale woman stepped through it, not approaching from the woods, but emerging from the lake itself. Her walk was unnatural, like she didn't have joints, just slow, jerky movements that twitched her body forward. She didn't seem to notice the camera. She simply walked straight into the cabin and vanished from view. Lucas left that morning, abandoning everything but his car and the clothes on his back. He never spoke publicly about it, but 2 years later, an amateur ghost hunting YouTube channel found the same cabin. The hosts went inside for a live stream. The connection dropped 18 minutes in. When rescuers found them 3 days later, they were both dead. One in the lake, lungs full of water, the other locked in the cabin's crawl space. The only writing found was scratched into the wooden door. "She only comes at 2 honk." No one goes to that lake anymore.
Story number 2.
In the fall of 2009, a 24-year-old woman named Marissa moved into an old apartment building in the outskirts of Boston. The rent was suspiciously low, but she didn't question it. She had just gotten out of a rough breakup and needed a place fast. The building had history. It was built in 1901, red brick, 4 floors, and rumor had it that part of it used to be a private asylum for nervous women before it was converted into apartments in the 60s. Her unit was on the top floor, quiet, isolated, just what she thought she needed. The strange things began on the fourth night. She was brushing her teeth when she saw it, just a flash, in the bathroom mirror. A figure behind her, not moving, just there. It was so quick she didn't even turn around at first. She blinked, glanced back at the mirror, nothing. When she finally turned, the room was empty. She laughed at herself, thinking maybe she was overtired or just rattled from the move. But the next morning, there were fingerprints on the inside of the mirror. Not handprints. Fingerprints. 6 of them. All long, thin, smeared across the glass like someone had dragged their fingertips downward. She lived alone. The following nights were worse. Her dreams became vivid, twisted. Every night, she dreamed of drowning in an empty room, walls peeling, tiles cracked, water rising, and a single voice whispering behind the door. It never opened. It just whispered. One night, she woke to her bathroom light flickering. She never left it on. As she crept toward the door, she saw that the mirror had changed. Written in the condensation, even though the room was cold, were the words, "Let me out." She tried to clean it, but no matter what she used, soap, vinegar, even scraping it, the message always came back the next morning. Sometimes the words changed. "She trapped me." And once, just beneath. Marissa called a mirror repair specialist who said there was nothing behind the glass. No double panel, no hidden compartment. But he told her something odd. Mirrors from that era were sometimes silvered using mercury, and certain old ones could retain chemical imprints if exposed to extreme heat or pressure. Basically, the mirror might have recorded something, but he stopped himself and left without charging her. That night, she nailed a thick sheet over it. The scratching began a few nights later. From inside the wall, right behind the mirror. It wasn't mice. It was deliberate, slow, a single finger dragging back and forth. She called the landlord, who reluctantly agreed to come by. When he saw where she lived, he grew pale, said she should have never been given that unit. When pressed, he admitted there had been incidents before. 2 tenants had left without notice. One disappeared entirely. Another jumped from the building, screaming about the girl in the mirror. Marissa demanded to know more. That's when he told her the story. In 1923, a young woman named Eleanor was committed to the asylum that occupied the building. Her condition wasn't documented well, but it was believed she suffered from intense delusions and dissociative episodes. She was kept isolated. One night, a nurse reported hearing Eleanor whispering to her mirror for hours. When the staff finally broke into her room, the mirror was shattered and Eleanor was missing. Vanished. The only clue was a message carved into the glass with what they believed was a shard of porcelain from her own tooth. "I found the way." After that night, the room she'd been held in was sealed. When the asylum closed and the building was renovated, that room became part of the apartment Marissa now lived in. She moved out the same week, but the damage was done. She told friends that she could still see something behind any reflective surface, subtle, just behind her, as if waiting for her to turn around. She started sleeping with every mirror covered. She removed reflective screens, glass, even polished metal. But one night, in a cheap motel on the road out of Massachusetts, she forgot to cover the bathroom mirror. In the morning, the maid found her sitting on the floor, rocking back and forth, eyes wide, unblinking. The mirror was gone, shattered into 1,000 pieces. Written on the wall, in something that looked like rust, were the words, "Now she's free." No one ever found out what happened to Eleanor or what was inside that mirror. But ever since, the building's top floor has stayed empty. And every now and then, a tenant below reports strange reflections, faces in their glass that don't belong to them. Always watching, always waiting.
Story number 3.
In 2014, a man named David started a new job as a night security guard at an old historical museum in rural Pennsylvania. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well and seemed easy enough. Just patrol the exhibits, check the security cameras, and log any activity. The museum itself was a strange place. It wasn't just colonial artifacts. It had a large, lesser-known wing called the Room of Curiosities, filled with donations and recovered oddities from across the state. Taxidermy animals, antique dolls, death masks, and unmarked relics that gave the whole place a funeral home feel. On David's first night, his supervisor gave one specific rule: never unlock the door to Exhibit 119. No explanation, No context, just a firm, unblinking instruction. Naturally, when David asked what was in there, the supervisor simply said, "It's best if no one knows." He didn't think much of it at first. The night passed quietly. Dim lights, old creaks, the usual settling sounds of a building that age. He made his rounds, passed by 119 several times. It was a small wooden door at the end of a hallway, iron hinges, no nameplate, just a keyhole covered with a taped-on scrap of paper that said, "Do not enter." By the end of his first week, the museum had already started to get to him. He kept hearing soft noises from that hallway, tapping like fingernails on wood. One night, he swore he heard someone whispering right behind the door of 119. He pressed his ear to it and heard breathing, not mechanical or vent-based, wet, labored breathing. He brought it up to his supervisor again. This time, the man looked genuinely nervous. "If you open that door, you won't make it to your next shift." Then he handed David a sealed envelope and said, "Only open this if something goes wrong. Otherwise, never speak of 19 again." David didn't sleep well after that, but he was curious, too curious. On his 10th night around 2 a.m., the cameras glitched just for a second. Every feed turned to static, then returned to normal, except one. The feed facing the hallway where Exhibit 119 sat showed the door slightly open. He stared at the screen. The door creaked further, inch by inch. Nothing came out, just darkness inside. David radioed it in, but no response. After a minute of silence, he grabbed his flashlight and went to check. The hallway was freezing cold, the kind of cold that made the air feel thick. He reached the door. It was shut again. He stood there, heart pounding, when he heard footsteps, but not behind him, from inside the room. And then something scratched on the door, slow and deliberate, like claws on the other side. Against every warning, he pulled out his keys. His hand was shaking, but he couldn't help it. He had to see. As he slid the key into the lock, the hallway lights flickered and a loud thud hit the other side of the door. Something had thrown its weight against it. He stepped back. The door didn't open. Instead, something whispered through the keyhole, so softly he almost thought he imagined it. "Let me see your face." David ran. He called off the rest of his shift and went home, shaken. When he finally opened the sealed envelope his supervisor had given him, inside was a single sheet of paper. It read, "If you hear it speak, leave and never come back. If you see it, it's too late. And if it sees you, run until you forget your own name." David quit the next day. No one's sure what's in Exhibit 119. The museum refuses to talk about it. The door is still there, unchanged, but locals say sometimes, on quiet nights, you can hear something knocking from inside. And occasionally, someone claims they saw a face peering through the keyhole. But the descriptions never match. Different faces, different eyes, but always smiling.